All right, thought we'd take a question today. Kyle, really appreciate all of your videos. Been a huge help to me in my own development. Thank you. I appreciate that. Curious as to what books you found most beneficial to you. You mentioned reading from a number of different topics for your own development. Would appreciate seeing a few favorites from each. Thanks so much. Keep the videos coming. They've been super helpful. All right. Yeah, so in a past video, I talked a little bit about kind of gathering information from all different kinds of sources, and one of them being I do a lot of reading. So I'll walk through kind of my favorites from each little domain or area, and we'll talk through them a little bit. So the first and probably most obvious would be kind of the ones that are directly related to shooting. Um, my first one to recommend is the Practical Shooting Training book by Ben Stoeger and Joel Park. It's the big white one. It's kind of like I've heard people call it the handgun training Bible. It's probably the most recent, relevant, and best written training book on handgun. And it's the one that's divided up into sections based on what level you're at. So if you're level one, kind of brand new to shooting, it's got the drills and the expectations. It's got certain par times to strive for, and it tells you what to look for, how to assess things. And then it goes up to 2, 3. If you're at like level 4, you're hell bent on world domination and national championships. And in a lot of cases, you're shooting the same drills as level 1, but you're assessing them differently. You've got a more critical eye, much more in the weeds. The expectations are higher. The par times are different, but the drills are the same. And that's one of the reasons I really like that is it walks you through, like if you spend some time training yourself out of that book, you'll learn how to kind of come back to a drill over and over and over again through different seasons in your shooting journey, and how the same drill can be used a lot of different ways. The expectations change. And I think from a coaching perspective, this is really relevant when you've got a class with a large variety of different levels of shooters. You're having them all shoot the same drill. How do you assess and cue and coach somebody who's relatively new versus somebody who is very, very good? And what input or not, what feedback do you provide each of those shooters on the same drill? Because the feedback you provide them will be different. Adaptive Rifle is basically the rifle version of that book. It's the rifle Bible for training, and I think that's a great one. It's also by Ben and Joel. Baseline Dryfire, another Ben and Joel book, is probably the most recent and relevant book written on red dot handguns. If you are at all current on training, it may not necessarily be earth-shattering or groundbreaking information, but the language that's used, the way concepts are articulated, the progression in which the training is developed, I think is all really good to get, and it's definitely worth a read. And the last one I'll recommend from Ben and Joel is Match Mentality. That one is less so about the specific training of shooting and more about the mental game side. I really like this one for developing the shooting processes, the mental processes to execute over and over and over again on demand. Because it really doesn't matter if you are going to shoot a match or you are going to work and you're expected to perform, when the day chooses you, as they say. In the end, it's all performance on demand. And even though this book is written specifically about going to shoot competitions, anybody who carries a gun for work or social situations, as they say, when those events happen, I think everybody would agree that those are also competitions, but the prizes for winning and losing are just different than, say, going and shooting a USPSA match. So I think that's a good book also to read. I really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot to get out of that. And it's useful also for being able to talk through students with their ability to develop a process to execute a plan on demand and be able to shoot to their ability when the time is dictated, because they don't always get to choose when that is. So whether it's an assessment or a critical event, their ability to execute when it matters is important. I know a note real quick. I know it sounds like I'm just shilling for my friends Ben and Joel to buy their books. I'll be honest. If I wasn't friends with them, I would still tell you to buy the books because they are phenomenal resources, and they don't need me to shill for them. They're doing just fine. They're selling plenty of books. So if you have them, read them. If you don't want to buy them, then don't. That's fine. Maybe they're at your library, or ask a friend. I'll bet you know somebody who has them. They'll let you borrow them. If you just really don't want to buy them, that's cool too. It's not really about whether or not you spend the money. I just want you to get the information that's in the book. At least I think it's worth having. The next section is going to be more specific to coaching. These are all books by Dr. Rob Gray. He is let me see if I get this right, a sports psychologist and researcher who's based out of the University of Arizona. His whole thing is he's an expert on skill acquisition and development. He works with professional sports teams all the time, developing drills or skills in order to allow ways for to train their athletes to develop skills or patterns of movement that are both efficient and also withstand pressure. So if you understand how to shoot a free throw, but it's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 kind of a situation, that type of written prescriptive teaching does not hold up under pressure. So when you are in front of 40,000 fans, that type of coaching does not hold up. His whole idea is internally developed skills that the athlete themselves develop within parameters with guidance. So they kind of learn on their own based on what works for them, how to achieve an outcome. And then that outcome is guided with additional rules or constraints or whatever in order to push them towards a solution that makes them successful in whatever task that the coach is trying to get them to. If you're not familiar, it's called ecological design for coaching. It is a different way of coaching. If all you're familiar with is, hey, you want you to do step 1, then step 2, then step 3, then step 4, and that's going to get you to the outcome. There are many, many, many other ways to teach somebody how to do a skill. And pretty much every other way except that one is more successful in retention and transferability as far as the skill acquisition and development. So I like Rob Gray's books. My favorites are How We Learn to Move and Learning to Optimize, How We Learn to Move and Learning to Be an Ecological Coach. Both of those are by Dr. Rob Gray. He's got another one called Learning to Optimize Movement. The How We Learn to Move and Learning to Optimize Movement are a little bit dry. They're very steeped in science theory and teaching theory. There's a lot of words in there that were new to me. And I think they're worth reading, though, because they are good background to understand the context from which the Learning to Be an Ecological Coach comes from. That's the one that really was the actionable piece. Hey, how do I take all of this theory and how do I then utilize it to be a better coach and develop my students? That's the one that was kind of really the rubber meets the road. But if I would encourage you to at least read one of the other ones to understand the background, because if without it, I'm not sure that it's going to make as much sense. And Dr. Gray has got several other books out there that are good. I'm just kind of giving you the highlights. I've read most of his stuff and it's very, very good. Another one that I like, and this is kind of getting away from coaching, and this is just kind of into general learning theory, is this one's called Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning. It's by Brown, Roediger, and McDaniel. And this one is really just about effective ways to teach people stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be a skill. It could be just generalized knowledge, or it could be a skill, or it could be any type of information. And some of the things I got out of this one were like in that book, they talk about a study where they took, I think, several groups of 8th grade students, and with some of the groups, they basically gave them a math problem and asked them to try to figure it out, even though they hadn't been taught how to do the type of math yet that was required to solve that problem. That was actually the lesson for the day. They still asked them to kind of work on that problem for 10 or 15 minutes and just struggle with it and see what they came up with. And then the other groups, they didn't do anything with. It was just, they didn't do any type of intro. They just went right into the teaching piece. And what they found was the group that had I can't remember what they called the term, but the group that had kind of the priming, or they struggled with the problem for a little while, even though they didn't know how to do it, they had a much higher level of understanding and retention for the knowledge after the lesson was taught, because the brain struggling through and kind of just even trying to puzzle out what's going on here gave a framework for that information to stick to, Whereas the other group, that just right out of the gate, the teacher started talking at them about, hey, this is how we're going to solve this math problem, and here's why this matters, and blah, blah, blah. They didn't have anything for that information to adhere to, and it just wasn't as effective. Another lesson I brought out of that book was how to challenge a student's recall in order to lengthen their amount of retention. So as an example for shooting, I'll give you an example. You have an in-service class come in. You haven't seen these cops in a year. Yeah, they've come in qual, but this is the first time they've actually done any training. During that training, you have them set up a double feed, and the drill is like, hey, on the beep, when the target turns, whatever, you're going to fix the double feed and fire 4 rounds. I don't know. If you tell them or remind them how to clear a double feed, whatever the process, protocol, steps you like to use, if you tell them ahead of time, they will be more successful in solving it in the moment, but their amount of retention they'll have and the likelihood that they will remember 3 months from now, if they didn't remember when you had to tell them, is very, very low. Instead, if you just tell them to set up a double feed, when the target turns, when you should fix it, however you figure out how to fix it, I just want you to see what you come up with. The mere act of trying to remember, to recall what they're supposed to know, or recall the strategies that they were taught on how to fix that, even if they're not successful, simply the act of trying to recall it will strengthen their ability to remember when they then get the remedial training. After you have to explain it to them again, the retention is longer that way. And so it has changed the way that I introduce and then like recover, or will step back and kind of touch on old topics again. I always do a recall portion first because of what I learned in that book. As a side note, completely unrelated to shooting, if you have kids in school and you're ever helping them with homework or helping them study for like a spelling test or a science test, history, whatever, that book completely altered the way that I help my son study. And it's more effective, and it's less time investment, less arguments, less effort, like more retention, basically more effective. All upside, no downside. I cannot recommend that book enough, especially if you got kids. But it was also really effective for helping you understand how people learn and more effectively recall things later for transference. I'll bring up another thing that I read. So Dr. Pete Blair has a blog. Basically, it's called Tactical Science Substack. It's essentially a blog. He posts articles there that are about mostly law enforcement style training. Sometimes he'll reference studies. Sometimes it's studies he's done. Sometimes it'll be a synopsis of longer articles that he's written. Sometimes he'll talk about experiments in training that he's done. He's a very Eco-D style coach. So he tries to bring that to the practical side of law enforcement training, even into and including building searches and, like low level or levels of CQB, that kind of a thing. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says. You might not either, but I think it's interesting to read. And if nothing else, it will get you thinking and challenge the way that you, the way you train. Maybe it'll make some changes, maybe you won't, but if nothing else, it will at least stimulate thought. I mentioned Dr. Rob Gray earlier. If you're a podcast person, he's got a podcast called the Perception and Action Podcast. And in it, he talks through a lot of the same stuff that's in his books, but it's more current, like, hey, this new study came out, or here's what this means, or he talks through some of the experiments that he does with college baseball players, or other things, other experiments that have happened, and what it means as far as like ways to coach a certain idea or how to develop a skill for a specific application. Not all of it's relevant. Not all of it is very exciting. Some of it's a little bit dry. But if you're a podcast person at all, I think it's worth checking out. It's not always relevant to the shooting world, but I think sometimes there's some good stuff in there. So it's another resource for you. The last resource I'm going to bring up is the Practical Shooting Training Group website. Within that website, if you've never been on it, there is a silver members video review section. So essentially what that is all of the members that are silver, that are like the silver level for whatever their subscription is, once a month, I think, they can submit a match video or them shooting a series of drills or whatever, and they can get online coaching feedback from Ben Stoeger, Hwansik Kim, and Joel Park. So the way that the website's structured, the way the section is structured, the member would put in like a 5-minute video. Maybe it's them shooting 5 to 6 stages at a match. And then below that, once Ben, Kim, or Joel sees it, they will use an app like a Coach's Eye app where they record that video with them talking over it. They can fast forward, they can rewind, they can pause, they can do the John Madden teleprompter circles and arrows and diagramming and things. And they talk through what they see and what they think needs improvement, the good stuff, the bad stuff, but they can essentially be a coach through like a virtual platform. Why I think this is super cool is it allows you the opportunity to look at a clean video of a shooter doing shooting things. You can watch it, evaluate it, and then immediately after that, you can go down to the very next post below it, and you can compare what you saw and what you thought, what you picked out to Ben, Kim, or Joel and see what it is that they noted. What did they tell that shooter to do? What were the important things that they noted that they thought were worth mentioning, and how closely did it match what you saw? Regardless of what you think, who your favorite shooting personalities are, Ben, Kim, and Joel are some of the most successful in the business, and they're outstanding shooting coaches. And I think this is essentially just a masterclass opportunity where you get to take a pretest where you see a shooter do the thing, and then you get to see what those guys brought out of the same video. They watched the same exact information. What did they pick up on as far as what the important things were to coach? So a couple years back, I got laid up for 2 or 3 months. I had to have my neck rebuilt. A bunch of titanium got put in. So I was off my feet, not shooting, couldn't work. And I decided I wanted to be productive during that time. So I went through and watched every single silver member video in that section at the time. I think it was somewhere in the order of 1,000 videos. And I would just, hour after hour, just crank through a bunch. I'd watch their video or watch the initial video, watch it through once or twice, pick out the 2 or 3 things I thought were important. Then I'd immediately go down and I'd watch the coaches submitted video where they gave their feedback, and I'd see how closely it matched. And it was incredibly helpful to developing my coaching eye and like what is most important and how much information is enough at the time. I can't overstate how useful that is. Most people like go to some sort of coaching site like that as a way to improve their shooting. I think it's an underutilized resource to develop your coaching. Now, it's a membership based website. It's not free. I can't remember what all the pricing tiers are, but in a month or two, for $40-$50 over a couple of months, whatever, I don't know, you could essentially go through some or all of those videos and get the same type of resource. Let's see how many are they now? Got a silver section. So there's now 57 pages, and there's like 20 to 25 reviews on every page. So they're up to almost 1,500 views. Yeah, up to almost 1,500 different videos now. So there's a ton of opportunity information there if you wanted to use it as a coaching resource. I think it's well utilized for that. It's also great for you like as a shooter, but like as a coach, it's underutilized for that. So those are my favorite kind of like the highlights of the stuff I've read, the things I think have benefit. If you've got more questions about it, something that's not clear, you want me to talk more about it, feel free to drop it down in the comments below. If you got some other question, I'm happy to answer it. Put it in the comments. Other than that, I hope this was helpful, guys. Thanks for your time. Take care.
Master Chief says to not forget to smash that like button.